The forgotten sentinel's crimson sand of Kithara shifted beneath Darius Kane's weathered boots as he checked his makeshift water collectors for the third time that morning. 18 years on this forsaken moon had taught him that survival meant routine, and routine meant staying alive another day. The twin suns cast harsh shadows across the rocky terrain he'd learned to call home. Though home felt like a word from another lifetime, he'd built his settlement in a natural cave system, expanding it over the years with salvaged materials from crashed meteors and debris that occasionally fell from passing ships. Most days, he convinced himself he'd forgotten about Earth, about the betrayal that landed him here, about the woman who'd framed him for destroying humanity's first contact with alien life. Most days, he was wronged out. The ground trembled beneath his feet, a vibration that didn't match the usual seismic activity. Darius grabbed his plasma rifle and climbed to his observation post, a crude tower he'd built from twisted metal and reinforced stone. Through his scavenged binoculars, he watched a sleek vessel streak across the sky, trailing smoke and fire. The ship was unlike anything he'd seen before. Where human vessels were bulky and utilitarian, this craft moved like liquid metal, its hull shimmering with patterns that seemed to shift and breathe. It crashed into the valley below with a sound like thunder, sending up a plume of dust and debris that would be visible for miles. Darius hesitated. In 18 years, no one had come looking for him. This could be a trap, or worse, it could be nothing, just another piece of space, junk to remind him of the universe that had forgotten him. But something about the ship's design nagged at him, familiar yet alien. He made his way down the treacherous slope, rifle ready. The vessel had carved a deep furrow in the sand, its hull cracked but still intact. Strange symbols glowed faintly along its surface, and he could hear the hiss of escaping atmosphere. Whoever was inside wouldn't last long in Kithara's thin air. The ship's emergency hatch was partially open. Darius approached cautiously, then froze as he saw her. She was tall and elegant, with skin that seemed to catch and hold starlight, luminescent. Markings traced intricate patterns along her arms and face, pulsing with a soft blue glow. Her hair was silver white, and her eyes, when they fluttered open, were the deep violet of distant nebulae. She wore form-fitting armor that had seen battle, and a blade unlike any human weapon lay beside her unconscious form. She was Seraphim. Darius recognized the species from classified files he'd seen during his diplomatic days. They were warriors, philosophers, and according to some, the oldest spacefaring race in the galaxy. They were also supposed to be extinct. The woman stirred, and her eyes focused on him with startling intensity. When she spoke, her voice carried the musical quality common to her people, but her words were in perfect Terran standard. "Darius Kane," she said, struggling to sit up. "I have found you at last." His rifle wavered. No one had spoken his name in 18 years. "Who are you? How do you know?" "My name is Nixara of the Starward clan," she said, wincing as she touched a wound on her side. "And you saved my brother's life." Bonds of fire and starlight. Darius helped Nixara to his settlement, her arm draped over his shoulders as she favored her injured leg. Up close, he could see that her luminescent markings weren't tattoos, but natural bioluminescence that pulsed with her heartbeat. She was heavier than he'd expected, her bones denser than human ones, but she moved with a warrior's grace even while wounded. "Your brother," he said as he guided her into his main living space. "I don't remember saving any Seraphim." "You wouldn't," Nixara replied, settling onto his makeshift couch with obvious relief. He was disguised as a human diplomat during the peace negotiations on Station Alpha 7. When the sabotage happened, when the explosion started, you pulled him from the wreckage, even though you thought he was just another human. The memory hit Darius like a physical blow. 20 years ago, he'd been part of Earth's first diplomatic Mission to establish formal relations with the galactic community. Someone had planted bombs throughout the station, timed to detonate during the signing ceremony. The blast had killed dozens and destroyed any hope of peaceful contact. He'd been framed as the saboteur and exiled without trial. "Zephyr," he whispered. The young aide with the quiet voice. He had the most unusual eyes. "Violet eyes are rare among humans," Nixara said with a slight smile, "but common enough among my people." He tried to maintain his disguise, even as you carried him to safety. "But you'd already seen too much. The Seraphim Council decided it was safer to let you face exile than risk exposing our presence at the negotiations." Darius felt anger and relief war in his chest. "So you've known I was innocent this whole time?" we suspected. The real saboteur was human, but they covered their tracks well. Nixara activated a small device, and a holographic image appeared, a woman with sharp features and cold eyes. Mira Vale. She works for a faction that opposes alien integration. Myra, Darius. Breathed. She'd been his partner, his lover. She'd held him the night before the ceremony, whispered promises of their future together. Then she'd watched silently as he was dragged away in chains. NYXA. RA single quotes S hand touched his, and he was surprised by the warmth of her skin. "Zephyr never forgot what you did. He convinced our clan elders to honor the life debt we owe you." "Life debt? When you save a Seraphim's life, we are bound to you until the debt is repaid. But this goes deeper than obligation, Darius Kane. My people are dying." Over the next several hours, as Darius tended to Nixara's wounds with his limited medical supplies, she told him about the war that was consuming the galaxy. The Void Harbingers, a race of mechanical beings, had emerged from dark space, systematically hunting down organic life. The Seraphim, once proud and numerous, had been reduced to scattered clans hiding in the outer rim. "Our seers speak of a prophecy," Nixara said, as Darius cleaned a deep cut on her shoulder. His touch was gentle, and he tried not to notice how. Her markings brightened when his fingers brushed her skin. "A bonded pair, one Seraphim and one human, who will unite our people and lead us from the darkness." "And you think that's us?" Darius asked, though he was already beginning to understand why she'd sought him out. "I think," Nixara said, catching his hand as he reached for more bandages, "that you are the first human I've met who would risk everything to save a stranger. And I think you're still that man, even after 18 years alone." Their eyes met, and Darius felt something shift between them, a connection that went beyond words or species. Nixara's markings pulsed brighter, and he realized his own heartbeat had synchronized with hers. That night, as they worked together to repair her ship, Darius found himself watching Nixara with growing fascination. She moved with liquid grace, her hands dancing over alien controls with practiced ease. When she laughed at one of his dry observations about Kithera's hostile weather, the sound sent warmth through his chest that he hadn't felt in decades. "Tell me about Zephyr," he said as they took a break from their work. Nixara's expression softened. "He became a diplomat like you, dedicated to finding peaceful solutions. He never stopped believing that humans and Seraphim could be allies." She activated another hologram, showing a tall Seraphim male with the same violet eyes, but a gentler bearing. "He made me promise to find you if anything happened to him." "What happened?" "The Harbingers found our home world 6 months ago. Zephyr stayed behind to evacuate civilians. He—" Her voice broke. "The life debt passes to family when the debtor dies. But this isn't just about honor anymore, Darius. I need you." Her admission hung in the air between them, heavy with possibility. Darius reached out, touching her face gently, marveling at how her markings responded to his touch. "Then we'd better fix your ship," he said. The awakening storm's Seraphim stronghold was hidden within an asteroid field in the outer rim. its location known only to clan leaders and their most trusted warriors. As Nyxera's ship, the Stellar Wind, approached the massive asteroid that housed their refuge, Darius couldn't help but marvel at the engineering required to hollow out such a space and make it livable. "It's not much," Nyxera said, noting his expression, "but it's home now." The docking bay was a cavern lit by bioluminescent plants that cast everything in soft, ethereal light. Dozens of seraphim moved through the space with purpose, their markings, creating a shifting constellation of colors. Many stopped to stare as Darius emerged from the ship. He was clearly the first human many had ever seen. "Nyxera," a deep voice called out. A tall seraphim male approached them, his bearing radiating authority. His markings were gold rather than blue, and his violet eyes held centuries of wisdom and pain. "Uncle Corvin," Nyxera said, inclining her head respectfully. "I've brought him." Corvin studied Darius with open skepticism. "This is the human from the prophecy? He looks ... ordinary." "Appearances can deceive," Nyxera replied firmly. "He has the mark of honor. Sephir's life debt is acknowledged." "A life debt is one thing. The prophecy speaks of something far greater." Corvin circled Darius like a predator sizing up prey. "The bonded pair who will unite the clans and lead us to victory. Tell me, human, what makes you worthy of such a destiny?" Darius met the older seraphim's gaze without flinching. "Nothing. Probably. I'm just a man who's been alone too long and doesn't want to see good people die if he can help it." Something in Corvin's expression shifted, not quite approval, but a recognition of honesty. "Nyxera tells me you were a diplomat before your exile." "I was. I believed in finding common ground between different peoples. Apparently, that made me dangerous to some." "The same people who hunt us now," Corvin said grimly. "Your former partner, Mira Vale, has allied herself with the Void Harbingers. She provides them with intelligence about human and seraphim weaknesses." The news hit Darius like a physical blow. It was one thing to know Myra had betrayed him, another to learn she was actively working to destroy both their species. Why would she do that? Power. The Harbingers promise her dominion over Earth in exchange for her cooperation. Corvin gestured for them to follow him deeper into the stronghold. She believes organic life is inefficient, chaotic. She sees the Harbingers as evolution. They entered a vast chamber where dozens of seraphim had gathered. The Council of Elders sat in a semicircle, their combined markings creating a constellation of light in the dim space. Nyxera took her place among them, and Darius felt the weight of their collective gaze. "We have lost 17 worlds to the Harbingers." The eldest seraphim spoke, her voice carrying the weight of ages. "Our people are scattered, our warriors few. The prophecy offers hope, but prophecies can be misinterpreted." "What would you have me do?" Darius asked. "Prove yourself," Corvin said, stepping forward. "If you truly carry the potential for bonding, then show us. Nyxera is our finest warrior matcher in combat, and will consider your worthiness." Darius looked at Nyxera, who gave him an apologetic shrug. "Seraphim culture values strength above all else," she explained. "They need to see that you can protect me before they'll accept that I can bind myself to you." The combat circle was marked out in the center of the chamber. Nyxera had given Darius a seraphim training, sword lighter than human weapons, but perfectly balanced. She faced him with her own blade, and he could see regret in her eyes. "I don't want to hurt you," she said quietly. "Then don't," Darius replied with a slight smile. "But don't go easy on me either. They need to see something real." The fight began with Nyxera's lightning-fast attack. Darius barely managed to parry, her blade singing through the air where his head had been a moment before. She was faster than any human opponent he'd ever faced, her movements flowing like water. But Darius had advantages of his own. 18 years of survival on Cathara had honed his instincts to a razor's edge. He'd fought dust storms and equipment failures, hunger and despair. He'd learned to find opportunities in the smallest gaps. He began to anticipate Nyxora's movements, not through speed, but through reading the subtle shifts in her stance, the way her markings pulsed before each attack. When she overextended on a particularly aggressive strike, he caught her wrist and pulled her close, their bodies pressed together for a heartbeat before she twisted away. Impressive, she breathed, and he realized her markings were burning brighter. You're holding back, he said. So are you. They separated and began again, this time both fighting in earnest. Darius felt something awakening in him, not just his old diplomatic skills or his survival instincts, but something deeper. When Nyxora's blade came at him, he could almost sense its path before she moved. When he struck back, she seemed to know exactly where to be got. They were moving together, their combat becoming a dance. The watching seraphim murmured in amazement as the two fighters began to glow Nyxora's natural bioluminescence, spreading to encompass Darius as well. The fight ended when they simultaneously struck, their blades crossing at each other's throats. They stood frozen for a moment, breathing hard, their eyes locked. Then Corvin's voice broke the spell. Enough, he said, and there was wonder in his voice. The bonding has begun. Hearts in the void Harbinger fleet emerged from dark. Space like a plague of metal locusts, their black ships absorbing light and hope in equal measure. Darius stood on the bridge of the stellar wind alongside Nyxara, watching the tactical display as dozens of Harbinger vessels surrounded the asteroid stronghold. They found us too quickly, Corvin said grimly. Someone gave them our location. Myra, Darius said with certainty. She's out there somewhere, watching this happen. Nyxora's hand found his, their fingers intertwining. Over the past week, since the combat trial, they'd grown closer in ways that surprised them both. Their bond was deepening beyond mere attraction. They could sense each other's emotions, share strength when needed. The other seraphim spoke of it in hushed, reverent tones. All ships, prepare for defensive formation beta, Corvin commanded. Protect the civilian evacuation shuttles. The battle began with Harbinger fighters swarming toward the asteroid like angry wasps. Seraphim ships rose to meet them, their elegant forms dancing through space with deadly grace. Darius found himself at the Stellar Wind's weapons console, his human tactical training merging seamlessly with Nyxora's instinctive understanding of space combat. There, Nyxara pointed to a gap in the Harbinger formation. If we can break through, we can hit their command ship, Darius finished. Their bond was allowing them to share thoughts, complete each other's strategic assessments. They launched into the battle, the stellar wind weaving between Harbinger fighters with impossible precision. Darius marveled at how naturally he and Nyxara worked together. When she banked left, he was already targeting the enemy on their starboard side. When he called out threats, she was already moving to avoid them. But the Harbingers were relentless. For every one they destroyed, two more seemed to take its place. Worse, their ships were learning, adapting to Seraphim tactics with each passing moment. We're losing too many ships, Nyxara said, her voice tight with strain. Corvin, we need to evacuate the stronghold. Negative, her uncle's voice crackled over the comm. If we abandon our position now, the Harbingers will hunt down every survivor. We make our stand here. That's when they saw her Myra ship, a sleek human vessel, modified with Harbinger technology, approaching from the edge of the battle. Darius felt rage and betrayal war in his chest, and through their bond, Nyxara experienced his pain as if it were her own. She's heading for the command ship, Nyxara observed, probably to coordinate the final assault. Then we stop her, Darius said. They pursued Myra's ship through the chaos of battle, dodging plasma fire and debris. When they caught up to her, Darius activated the comm system. Myra, this is Darius. It's over. Surrender now, and maybe we can end this without more bloodshed. Her face appeared on their screen, beautiful and cold as ever. Darius Kane, I wondered if you were still alive out there. You always were too sentimental for your own good. Sentimental enough to save lives instead of destroying them, he replied. Why, Mira? Why betray everything we fought for? Because everything we fought for was a lie, she snapped. Peace with aliens? Harmony between species? Look around you. Darius, the galaxy is chaos. The harbingers offer order, efficiency. They'll eliminate the variables that make organic life so messy. Variables like love? Nixara interjected. Like hope? Like the bonds that make life worth living? Myra's laugh was bitter, spoken like someone who's never watched their entire world burn, because two species couldn't overcome their differences. The harbingers don't make those mistakes. They don't make anything, Darius said. They only destroy. The conversation ended when Myra opened fire. Her ship's weapons were more advanced than anything Darius had seen, combining human engineering with harbinger technology. The stellar wind shook under the assault, warning lights flashing across the bridge. We can't match her firepower, Ixara said. Dawn of New World's Earth hung in space like a blue-green jewel, beautiful and vulnerable. From the bridge of the stellar wind, now flagship of the combined Seraphim fleet, Darius watched his birth world prepare for war. Defensive platforms powered. Up around the planet, their weapons charging with desperate energy. But he knew it wouldn't be enough. Harbinger fleet strength? He asked. Over 300 ships, Corvin reported from the tactical station, including their world killer vessels. If they reach Earth's surface, double quotes, they won't, Nixara said firmly. Beside Darius at the command console, she radiated confidence despite the impossible odds. Their bond had stabilized over the past week as they gathered the scattered Seraphim clans, uniting them under the banner of the ancient prophecy. Now, 47 Seraphim vessels approached Earth alongside them, not many, but each one crewed by warriors who believed in something greater than themselves. Incoming transmission from Earth Defense Command, their communications officer announced. Admiral Torres appeared on the main screen, her weathered face showing the strain of preparing for humanity's last stand. Her expression shifted to shock when she saw Darius. Kane? Darius Kane? But you're supposed to be dead? Exiled? It's a long story, Admiral. The important thing is that we're here to help. We? Torres looked at Nixara with obvious suspicion. Who is this? Nixara of the Starward clan. Admiral Torres, Nixara said, inclining her head respectfully. We are Seraphim, and we stand with humanity against the Void Harbingers. Torres's eyes widened. Seraphim? But first contact protocols were sabotaged 20 years ago by someone working with the Harbingers. Darius interrupted. Admiral, there's no time for explanations. The enemy fleet will be here within the hour. We need to coordinate our defenses. What followed was the most complex military operation in human history. Darius found himself serving as translator and liaison between two very different military traditions, while Nixara worked with the Seraphim fleet commanders to integrate their tactics with Earth's defensive strategy. The plan they developed was desperate but elegant. The Seraphim ships would use their superior speed and maneuverability to harass the Harbinger flanks, while Earth's heavy weapons platforms concentrated fire on the enemy capital ships. Darius and Nixara, their bond allowing them to coordinate both fleets simultaneously, would command from the center of the formation. One more thing, Admiral Torres said as they finalized the battle plan. Our intelligence suggests the Harbingers have a human advisor, someone with detailed knowledge of our weaknesses. Myra Vale, Darius said grimly. She's the one who framed me, and she's been working with them ever since. If we can capture her, we can end this war, Nixara finished. Through their bond, she could feel his pain at Myra's betrayal, but also his determination to stop her. The Harbinger fleet emerged from hyperspace like a dark tide, their black ships blotting out the stars. At their center, a massive vessel dwarfed even Earth's largest dreadnoughts, the Harbinger worldship, capable of consuming entire planets. "All ships engage," Darius commanded, his voice carrying across both human and seraphim comm channels. The battle for Earth began with a coordinated strike against the Harbinger vanguard. Seraphim fighters danced between the enemy formations, their bioluminescent hulls leaving trails of light in the darkness. Human ships responded with disciplined volleys of plasma fire, their weapons reaching out across impossible distances to find their targets. But the Harbingers adapted quickly, their ships learning from each exchange. Soon the tide began to turn against the defenders. "We're losing too many ships," Torres reported. "At this rate, they'll break through our lines within 20 minutes. That's when Darius felt it, a familiar presence approaching from the edge of the battle. Myra's ship, now fully integrated with Harbinger technology, was making its way toward Earth's surface. "She's going for the orbital defense grid," Nixara observed. "If she can disable it from within ... The Harbingers will have a clear path to the planet," Darius finished. "We have to stop her." They broke formation, the stellar wind diving toward Earth's atmosphere in pursuit of Myra's vessel. Behind them, the battle raged on, seraphim and human ships dying to buy them precious time. The chase led them through Earth's upper atmosphere, past the defense platforms, and toward the surface itself. Darius felt a strange emotion as he saw his home world rushing up to meet them. Not quite nostalgia, but a recognition of something precious that needed protecting. Myra's ship landed in the ruins of New Geneva, the old diplomatic quarter where the first contact ceremonies had been held 20 years ago. It seemed fitting, somehow, that their final confrontation would take place where it all began. Darius and Nixara landed nearby, their ship's weapons trained on Mira's vessel. They approached on foot, weapons drawn, moving with the perfect synchronization their bond provided. Mira emerged from her ship alone, no longer the woman Darius had once loved. Harbinger technology had been integrated into her body cybernetic. Implants gleamed along her arms and face, and her eyes held the cold light of artificial intelligence. "You're too late," she said, her voice carrying electronic harmonics. "The defense grid is already compromised. In 10 minutes, the worldship will begin its consumption of Earth." "It doesn't have to end this way," Darius said, his weapon trained on her heart. "You can still choose to be human." Myra laughed, the sound distorted by her implants. "Human, look at yourself, Darius. Bonded to an alien, your mind linked to something not of your species. Which of us is still human?" "Both of us," Nixara said simply. "Humanity isn't about species, Myra. It's about choosing connection over isolation, love over hate, hope over despair." "Pretty words," Myra replied, raising a weapon of her own, a Harbinger energy pistol that hummed with malevolent power. "But the universe doesn't care about your feelings." The standoff stretched for a heartbeat, then Myra fired. "But Darius..." And Nixara moved as one, their bond allowing them to dodge with inhuman coordination. Nixara's return shot struck Myra's weapon, destroying it in a shower of sparks. "It's over," Darius said. "Surrender, and we'll find a way to remove the Harbinger technology. You can still come back from this." For a moment, something human flickered in Myra's modified eyes. Then the moment passed, and she activated a device on her wrist. "If I can't have order," she said, "then I'll settle for chaos." The explosion that followed would have killed them both, but their bond reached out instinctively, creating a protective barrier of shared will and determination. When the smoke cleared, Mira was gone, not dead, but dissolved into component atoms by her own harbinger technology. Above them, the world ship had begun its descent toward Earth's surface. But something was different. Now the other harbinger vessels were pulling back, their coordination failing. The command signal. Nixara realized Mira was their link to the fleet. Without her, they're just machines again, Darius finished. Dangerous, but not adapted to fight us specifically. The battle that followed was swift and decisive. Without Myra's intelligence, the Harbingers reverted to standard tactics that human and Seraphim forces could counter. The world ship, massive and powerful but slow, became a target that Earth's heaviest weapons could finally destroy. When the last Harbinger vessel fell, the combined fleet turned toward Earth. Darius found himself standing before the Planetary Council, his exile officially revoked and his name cleared of all charges. But when they offered him a position in Earth's new interstellar diplomatic corps, he declined. "My place is with thee." "Seraphim now," he said, Nixra's hand warm in his. "Our bond is more than personal. It's the beginning of something new. A true alliance between our peoples." The council chambers erupted in debate, but Admiral Torres stood and raised her hand. For silence. "The man has earned the right to choose his own path," she said. "And if that path leads to a lasting peace between Earth and the Seraphim, then we should be grateful." 6 months later, Darius and Nixara stood together on the observation deck of their new ship, a hybrid vessel designed by both human and Seraphim engineers. Around them, the combined fleet prepared for departure to the Outer Rim, where other species waited to join their growing alliance. "Any regrets?" Nixara asked, her markings pulsing with gentle light. Darius considered the question seriously. He thought of his 18 years of exile, of the betrayal that had led him to Kithara, of all the pain and loneliness he'd endured. Then he looked at Nixara, at the love and partnership they'd built together, at the new future spreading out before them like an uncharted star map. "None," he said, pulling her close. "Exile taught me that survival isn't enough. Sometimes you have to be willing to lose everything to find what truly matters." Their kiss was interrupted by an urgent chime from the bridge. Corvin's voice came over the comm system. "Darius, Nixara, we're receiving distress signals from the Rigel sector. Multiple species under attack by an unknown enemy." They looked at each other and smiled. Their work was just beginning, but they would face it together, bonded not just by prophecy or obligation, but by love and the shared belief that the galaxy was worth fighting for. "Set course for Rigel," Darius commanded. "Maximum speed.